think I am here. Okay. According to this, boy oh boy, it used to be when I would be able to just press a button and Facebook just started. I'll tell you, if Facebook is going to be this complicated and changing all of its rules, I think that we've outgrown Facebook and it's time to go. So you can see me. Hopefully, y'all can. They were giving me page after page of settings, interactivity, distribution, and all the like. And you know something? There's an old saying that I'm sure you've all heard: you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And if anybody's an old dog, that's me. So woof woof. But anyway, what do you expect from a part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution? But that's Facebook. Alrighty, we are here. Baruch Hashem. I have no idea if this thing is recording or whatever. So whatever it is, and we'll just take it from there. I can see your comments. I can see myself. I don't know what there is to see with that. But anyway, a little late. Better a little late than never. But, you know, what can I say? We have a lot to talk about. Not in any schedule or anything of the kind. So, Baruch Hashem, let's get started. Wahi noam leratzon im refi v'gion libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri v'goali. May the words of my mouth and thoughts of my heart be acceptable before you, Hashem, my rock, my redeemer. Shalom all. It's been a long time since we have done a live Facebook class. Normally, I try to remain exclusive in our teachings to our KosherTorah school student body. But in light of current events and things going on, I figured, well, maybe it's time to have to address some of the issues publicly. So that's what I'm here to do. Now, for those of you who know, I have addressed issues of end time studies, topics of aliens, angels, and all the rest. In here in my Facebook feed, you'll see I put links to my books that are available on Amazon, and I also put links to my videos, which are available on YouTube. So when we get into discussions, and this is not a forum for an academic review of all of the scholarly material sources. If you're interested in those, they are published in my books. So for example, if you're interested in the information about inner earth and what the Zohar says about it, well, here's my book, Behind the Veil. All of it's translated in there, and the link is there, and my Facebook feed there. And if you want to see the sources, this is where you go. If you want to learn about prophecies at the end of days and the like, cool and groovy, I got a book on it. Visions of the End of Days. This is my commentary to the prophecies, only the prophecy sections in Sefer Daniel. And to the best of my knowledge, I think I'm the only rabbi out there who has a Kabbalistic commentary to Daniel available in English. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, I'm just showing you the sources. This is the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, the biggie. Aliens, Angels, and Demons. I wrote this pretty much because of my involvement with the television program Ancient Aliens. I've been on the show a whole bunch of times over many, many years. I've gotten to know everybody, you know, in production and people and the like. And a lot of people are nice and sweet, but in all due respect, with maybe one or two exceptions, no one has a real clue about what's going on. And that's just the way it is. So, if someone from religious community says, Rabbi, this is the way we always say it in the yeshiva world, Eifo ze katuv? which means, where is it written that our sages believed in aliens and the like? You want to know? Yeah, I see the book. You see how thick it is? Those are all the Makorot. You read it and see for yourself. I don't make this stuff up. And just to begin here, I'm going to tell you something. All right? Just between us. All right? I do not have my own personal flying saucer parked in my garage. I just don't. I'm sorry. I wish I did. And to the best of my knowledge, the last time I looked in my closet, I don't even have a TARDIS. Son of a gun. You know what a TARDIS is from Doctor Who, right? Gee whiz. How am I ever going to fight the Daleks without my TARDIS? Now, obviously I'm being facetious. Why? Because the nature of the material that we're discussing has been so inundated with fiction that it's like trying to find the proverbial needle in the haystack to understand what the blankety blank is really going on. I'm going to tell you some stuff. And I will tell you right from the beginning, I will not be violating any confidentiality agreements that I am subject to. I am not going to confirm nor deny any involvement in anything with anyone anywhere. Period. So don't ask me about questions like that. Let's not get conspiratorial. But I believe very differently from many others who want to keep a lid on things because of their own concerns and fears. Well, many of those others, you should know, privately come and turn to me for one reason. I give them something that others don't. And that is what we're here to talk about tonight. The beginning? Where should we begin? Pre-adamic? 1,000,000 years ago? 100 million years ago? Do you really think that our present circumstances are isolated from the ultimate scheme of things? Because they ain't. When we come and study the Torah, those of us who are rabbis and sages, let me just take one step back. Those of you who are not rabbis and sages, I know you don't want to listen to me. I know you're not going to hear what I say. But if you do not know the original Hebrew, if you do not understand ancient Semitic literature, if you do not understand the subtle nuance of the type of literature that the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim are, you will absolutely never in 1,000,000 years understand Tanakh. You're not going to understand the Torah. You're not going to understand the difference between what is literal and what is metaphor and how to tell the difference. So when people come to the story of Genesis, of course they read it in English. And this, of course, is one of the major problems when we have to address issues with, of course, our Christian brothers and sisters. You know, for those of you who know, I live here in eastern Tennessee. It's probably, in my opinion at least, one of the most wonderful places in the United States. The vast majority of the neighbors who I know are all God-fearing, Bible-believing Christians, and they darn well know who I am as a rabbi. And surprisingly, in all the places I've lived across this country, from east to west to north to south, it's only here that I've never experienced personally any kind of anti-Semitism. Simply because the people here are God-fearing. And I honor and I respect that, and I receive nothing but honor and respect in return. But yet, the one thing that I must critique my Christian brothers and sisters, and I call them brothers and sisters, I don't give a hoot if you like it or not. I'm not in any fight with missionaries and the like. I know what they believe. I'm not here to discuss that. All right? In comments that I've seen on posts that I've made, I know what people have said. Fine. I'm not going to argue with you. I will just make a statement here about Mashiach, just for the record. When the true Mashiach comes, we're going to know, because the world is going to be fundamentally changed in accordance to biblical prophecy. And The one who accomplishes that is going to be Mashiach. And I don't care if the Jews don't accept him, or the Christians don't accept him, or the Muslims don't accept him. You want to know what? He's not going to care either, because he's got his agenda from God, right? And he's going to accomplish it. And he's not going to give a hoot about what anybody thinks about it. Period. Done. End of story. So therefore, I am not going to argue doctrine and theology. I'm just going to tell you what our Torah traditions teach. I'm going to share with you some deeper things, the likes of which I put in my deeper books. And then I'll tell you some personal things about experiences. I want, and I'm planning, and if I don't get to this, believe me, somebody in text you will remind me. I want to tell you what really happened at Skinwalker Ranch and what's really going on there, because that's something that they're not going to put on the television show. But let's go back. We all know what the Torah says. We all have read it in English or our native languages, and we've read the traditional commentaries called Pshat. Now, there are other commentaries, other voices, and this is so fundamental and important issue that you must understand when it comes to Torah. Since the end of the era of the prophets, the prophet era did come. There are no more people where God comes and says to them, "Thus saith the Lord, go speak to the children of Israel and say unto them, blah, blah, blah." No longer, it doesn't happen. Do people still connect with God in that same way? Oh, absolutely. But it's personal, never for the nations, not national. So that's the difference, ballpark, between what we can call Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, prophecy and Holy Spirit kind of stuff. But you have always had rabbis, sages, who have had experiences, interactions with entities in higher dimensions. This has been part and parcel of our Torah tradition from as long ago as it goes. Now, in 500 years ago, ballpark, Rab Chaim Vital, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, the famous Ari, gave us with profound insight a system which creates for us a vocabulary which enables us to describe all of these things that before were not very describable. So throughout the centuries, you've had Chachamim, rabbis, who've made ascent. When I say ascent, as a point that I made in a recent essay, which I actually recorded and put on YouTube, and I think I posted the video to Facebook here, about knowing the difference between parallel dimensions and actual other worlds. A point that our sages have always known. Of course there is, in quote, life in outer space on other planets. Indeed, Rabbi Pinchas Horowitz, who wrote the Sefer Habrit, top Talmud of the Gaon of Vilna, speaks about them as being Ba'alei Sechel Umedah, right? Masters, if you will, of intelligence and knowledge. All the sources right there in the book. Go read the book if you want sources. Don't ask me to like quote 2 pages and stuff like that. All right? That's what books are for, not live conversation. It's all there. Our sages always knew these things. Rabbi Kaplan, Aryeh Kaplan, Alav Shalom, he addressed these things years ago too. Now, it doesn't matter what's up there. Who cares? Think about this realistically. If we take our big Hubble telescope and or whatever the heck is out there, and we discover 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 light years away, there is a planet out there of the aliens. Mazel tov. Who cares, right? You tell people, yeah, we're in touch by long distance radio with the aliens out there. It will be sensational news. Everybody will think it's ooh and ah. It'll take up the news and the social feed and blah, blah, blah. But it's not really going to change things, is it? You're still going to gotta get up in the morning and go to work. You're still going to pay your bills. You're still going to have all the social and the political and all the economic garbage and nonsense that goes on every day. So all that a story like that would be is entertainment. Not very, very relevant to the here and now. So if our governments were to discover such a thing, what would be the big deal? But now let's say they discovered something else. For centuries, we've been talking about life, intelligent, indigenous, non-human life. That is not out there, but it's a little bit closer to home. We are so comfortable in our materialistic myth, thinking that this world that we live in, the tangible world, is the only real world. Well, bull dinkies to that. We have always spoken about this. Whenever you read in our Torah literature, and go study the literature of all other religious and spiritual cultures around the world, whether they're called entities or beings or angels or demons or gods or whatever, we're talking about, everybody is talking about intelligent, non-human entities who interact with us. Okay? That is the ground given that we all understand. But from the religious point of view, what do we call that? Oh, they're spiritual. Angels are spiritual beings. What the blankety blank is spiritual meaning anyway? Well, most people will turn to a philosophical definition of that based upon one of the great sages like Maimonides, who takes his opinion, not from the Torah, mind you, but from Aristotle. They are non-physical, ethereal beings who have no construct of form whatsoever, and therefore they are spiritual. That's a lovely opinion. Is it true? If you read Maimonides, he will look at an example like we have in the Torah of the three guests who came to Abraham. Maimonides is of the opinion that that did not happen literally, physically at all, but it was all a vision in Abraham's eye. Others interpret it quite literally. These are different opinions. Now, why am I telling you this? Because if you're going to look into anything that, in quote, Judaism says, you're going to find a full gamut of ideas and beliefs and views from all different sources. And let's just limit those sources to kosher, Torah authoritative sources, and all the heretical nonsense and garbage from all these other weirdo groups that have developed over the last century. No, I am not very inclusive when it comes to people violating the foundations of the Torah. So sorry, but that's just the way it is, right? We stay tried and true here, and we are called Orthodox. We don't call ourselves Orthodox. We call ourselves observant to Torah, Torah observant, to observant of the Masorah of our sages. And if you're not, it's your business. God will deal with you, not me. I'm not a policeman. I'm not a judge. Do you see me in judge's robes? Do you see a badge here that says I'm a cop? No. Let God deal with you, not me. I am here. I endeavor to teach an old system. And you may like the system, and you may not like the system. I don't care. It's here for you if you want it. And it's still here even if you don't want it. And what system is that? The experience, the system of experience. To fulfill a single mitzvah. The mitzvah of divikut, bonding with God. That will come and include to love God, to know God, to fear God, etc. Because even the concept of God is something so far beyond what we in our mythology, it's a mythology, we think. Most people even in our Jewish circles, consider God to be kind of like Santa Claus, right? God's sitting up in a big throne. He's got this big, long beard. And we go and pray to God, dear God, gimme, 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 amen. And that's what most people pray for, right? They want God to give them things. God's Santa Claus. That's the case, you're going to get a sack of coal. That's a mythology. And it violates the second of the 10 commandments. Al tihi Elohim acharim al panai. Don't put any other concept or idea or form upon God. That's why we have no semblance of image or form or anything of the kind. But the Kabbalah took a system of understanding which surprisingly had its origins in Greek Neoplatonic philosophy. Yeah, that's really where it comes from. I don't care if you like it or not. Where in which the great ultimate question was asked. If God's the ultimate high up there, how does he get down here to us? And they developed the concept of gradients, levels, which in the Kabbalah tradition we call sephirot. Okay? And yes, people are going to put the concept and ideas of sephirot way back when into places where it was not historically, but it doesn't matter. At the subconscious and the unconscious level, it was always there. But at the conscious level, no. But we're not going to get into all that stuff. I'm not going to get into the debate of it right now. But we will use the concepts because it's important for us to understand. Adam was created. Our sages teach us that Adam was not the first human being. Where does it say that? Please, just read the books. Okay, you'll see the sources there. So don't get all bent out of shape. Not only was Adam not the first human being, but there were full civilizations that rose and fell prior to the Adamic race. And I'm talking about human and humanoid civilizations that arose and fell. So, you'll see portrayed in some of the TV shows like Ancient Aliens, they talk about the ancient sites like Mohenjo-Daro and all these other places, Göbekli Tepe, is that what it's called? And they want to say, this is proof of aliens among us. That's no proof of aliens at all. What it is proof is that there were very advanced Adamic civilizations with high levels of technology. And yes, their civilizations most definitely included what we would call space travel, nuclear technology, and the like. Where does it say that? Read the books, please. Okay? Just read the books. Go see the sources. Don't waste my time. But you need to understand this. And you're going to disagree if you want to look at this academically, but I'm not here to talk to you academically. My intent and purpose in being here right now is to hope that I'm going to speak to your heart and maybe, just maybe, remind you of something that you've always known, but maybe don't have the words for. I don't want to put any thoughts in your head. God forbid. Don't listen to me. I'm a nobody, and I confess it from right now, right? But I want to wake up something within you that you can hear for yourselves. That's what my school has been for the last 30 years. Now, the pre-Adamic civilizations, according to sources that our sages have revealed, is that they rose and fell in succession. The Zohar makes an interesting, curious interpretation of what looks to be a completely irrelevant genealogy in chapter 36 of Genesis, which speaks of the kings who reigned in the land of Edom prior to there being a king in Israel. And again, I document all the sources of those who understood the pre-Adamic civilizations. Planet Earth, in my writings, I call Schoolhouse Earth, because somehow the higher forces that be in this universe who represent the source, of course, we call God. And what are representatives called? Messengers. What do we call those again in Hebrew? Oh, that's right. A messenger in Hebrew, the Hebrew word is malach. How do we translate that? A angel. We like to think of angels as these nice little sweetsy little people with the wings on the back, like the little statues you see in the Hallmark stores in the mall. They still have those, don't they? Yeah, they should. But yeah, nonsense. Look at the way these representatives, these malachim, are described in Tanakh. Look at how Ezekiel's describing them. If that ain't extraterrestrial, I don't know what is. So, real simple. For those who want to say, where does the Bible say they're extraterrestrials? Well, angels they're not of this earth. If they're not of this earth, they're not terrestrial. And if they're not terrestrial, then they are, in quote, extraterrestrial. But here we go into that fantasy of this concept of spiritual. I think that the Bible is very clear that these entities do get around with some kind of transportation device, a technological transportation device. Eliyahu Navi goes up to heaven in a chariot and horses of fire. Well, that was only a spiritual vision. Well, he disappeared. How did he disappear? Where did he go? How did he get there? All right. Ezekiel saw his chariot. Now, people like Eric von Daniken, I know Eric is a lovely man, Chariot of the Gods type stuff, and other people, they say, well, that's a spaceship. Sorry, Eric. No, it wasn't. You got to know the Hebrew clearly. It was a transportation device. But it also was not present in our physical space. This is what we need to understand when we're looking at what's happening today. Because what's happening today is no different from anything that's happened throughout the entire past. And here's the big deal. And why this recent whistleblower, I forgot his name already, no one's paying attention to what he said. When he said, oh, where we have these recovered technologies and the like, you know, what's his name? Corso, Colonel Corso, Philip Corso, wrote the book The Day After Roswell years and years ago. He was the Pentagon guy who was involved with all of this. Of course it's real. By the way, for the record, a ship did not crash at Roswell. It was shot down. Yeah, they know how to do that. The Nazis taught them. We're not going to get into the relationships between certain elements in the United States government, Operation Paperclip, Nazis coming into certain areas like the CIA and NASA and the like. We'll put that aside. We don't need to get into that stuff. But we've been involved with and aware of, should I call them extraterrestrials? Other intelligent, non-human life that's existing right here, right now, let me rephrase, on Earth, but not our Earth. You see, what we've always known in our Torah traditions and other spirituality traditions, they know the same thing. No exclusivity here. There are other dimensions. That's the world we call it now. Word we call it dimensions, right? It used to be called olamot. There are multiple dimensions. And if we can shift the way that we are aware and conscious, we can become aware of those other dimensions and interact with them. Well, one of the cheapest and easiest ways to do that, of course, has always been through mind-altering hallucinogenic drugs. The problem with their usage, and why we absolutely and totally condemn their usage, even a ayahuasca, is because the mind and soul of the individual who is then shifting into the parallel dimension is going to have as if some kind of a fog of clarity over the intellect, which is necessary and required to be able to properly perceive the experience. And the visionary application of the experience is going to be skewered, and you're not going to have a clear reception. And based upon that, we fundamentally disavow the use of any hallucinogenic, no pot, no hashish, no ayahuasca, certainly no LSD and all that other kind of stuff. Now, what about those who are properly trained to be able to address that? Well, okay, they're different. But those and their type of training might take decades until they have that clarity of mind. In our prophetic traditions, we teach exactly that. That clarity of mind means that you have to clean out what the Kabbalah calls the klipot. The klipot we will call the levels within the subconscious, which create within our minds all kinds of garbage. We refer to the klipot as being mistaken forms of thought, mistaken forms of feelings, mistaken forms of actions, the likes of which permeate our reality. So we have other dimensions right here, right now. There might be somebody standing literally right there. No, not a 6-foot rabbit named Harvey, but whatever, in a parallel dimension. Now, maybe what our scientists are now speaking of, dark matter universe, maybe that's it. I don't know. I'm not the scientist that I can comment from a scientific point of view. But from our Torah traditions, like I said, dating back way back when, we know not only about these things academically, but we are trained to interact and experience these things personally. This is the traditions that are generally called together Ma'aseh Merkava. So, again, you want to know what that is, how to learn it and stuff. Yeah, that's why I have my videos, my books. I mean, we're doing, like I said, 30 years. I can't sum up 30 years of work in 30 seconds. So it's out there if you're interested. But I'm here to tell you about the results of such experiences and to give you a little insight into what's happening in the world today. We've always known that there were pre-adamic civilizations. And we've always known that there are, for lack of a better word, upheavals. I believe that they were intentionally designed because I believe Schoolhouse Earth has different classes that come here for whatever educational evolving purpose, and then they move on. It is said, who has it? Behind the Veil, I know, I translated it from a book called Michel Galabin, which speaks that in the previous epoch, the previous civilization, pre-Adamic civilization, they had their own version of a Torah, their own version of a temple, of a Mashiach, of a resurrection of the dead. And that all during that period, the present human race, we were like their little pets. We were the ones who they tapped on the head. I will tell you from sources that I will not reveal that those civilizations, number one, they were giants. Remember the ones whose bones we're finding all over the place? Yeah, that's them. They were about 16 to 20 feet high, and they were fully humanoid, but big guys. And they looked at us as their little pets, little cuties, right? They treated us like the dogs. Woof, woof. So, they evolved and they moved on, and we became the next race. And it's very curious that it states in the previous epoch, those who were, and this is from a Jewish point of view, so understand that, those who were the Gentiles now are the Jews. And in the next epoch, those who today the Gentiles would be the new Jews. Because the concept of Gentile and Jews is used in this context to represent the evolution of consciousness. I only wish that I could say being Jewish gives you evolved consciousness, but judging from the reality and looking at things, most Jews today, especially the secular ones, have a devolved consciousness, which clearly divorces them from anything psychic and real. The ultimate reality is we have greater realities around us at all times. We don't see them, but many of them see us in a different dimension. Think if we have the flat plane dimension. This is examples that a lot of the physicists use. All right? If you're in a flat plane dimension, you can see right and left, you can see back and forth, but you can't see up. Up doesn't exist in a flat universe. So if you're up, you could see their entire dimension below, and they're not even aware of your presence. That's kind of how this dimensional stuff works. They are of a higher dimension. And just like in our dimension, you have all different kinds. So do they have there? You actually have animals in those dimensions. Now, in those dimensions, the one thing that they experience that we don't, the one things that they see that we don't, is what I call energy signatures. In the more modern pop new age stuff, they call it auras. It's a little more than that. We are all energetic beings. Every thought that you think, every feeling that you feel, every action that you perform emanates an energetic field, which creates a signature which is as unique as your fingerprints. And one who experiences you, who knows your energy, can read it, feel it, and experience it and absorb it. These entities, they see all of us just like that. So there's no secrets. There's no hiding. They recognize what we would call holy, unholy, righteous, wicked, based upon these energy signatures. Now, the concept of energy signatures should not be strange to us. We all know the concept which we call a vibe. You don't necessarily clearly read it, but you can walk into a place and get a vibe from it, or meet somebody and just get a vibe from them and the like. Well, that's what we're dealing with. And of course, our traditions teach us to cultivate the clarity of that, which we call, if you will, psychic training. Being that there are other places to go, we also recognize, this is also from Gemara, Kabbalah, we have what we call 5 levels of soul. If you will, consider that to be levels of consciousness. And that we also have energetic bodies corresponding to those individual levels of consciousness. So in the New Age pop circles, they call this an astral body. In the words of Reb Chaim Vital and the other Kabbalists, this energy body was always called a Chalukah Darabanan. We shift consciousness into, or let me rephrase, out of this physical and into the Chalukah Darabanan, which then makes us aware of the greater reality around us. And then we travel in that reality based upon the laws of physics that are applicable there. Somebody's made a comment here in text. It says like a fishbowl. Well, yeah, this dimension is like a fishbowl. And the more that we accept the lie of materialism, that all there is the physical, then you're going to, like Plato's cave, turn your head into the little corner and see nothing there. I'm not out here to convince you of anything. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to look and see with your own eyes. Why should you see with mine? Who am I? This is what, again, like I said, we're here to teach. And we must understand, Schoolhouse Earth has an agenda, a program. Or, to put it in religious terms, God has a plan. We've known that from the days of the Torah throughout all the prophets. We know what the ultimate goal is going to be. And we know how it must come along. We have the prophecies of the prophets recorded in the Tanakh. We have the wise predictions and perceptions of our sages, many of whom, of course, did astral travel. And not only did they experience higher consciousness in a parallel dimension, but in astral projection and remote viewing, they went into these other dimensions and communicated with the people there. Rabbi Akiva did this. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi did this. Of course, the biblical prophets and people to this day. We do this all the time. This is for us kind of normal. As such, you kind of see some stuff that other people just don't. And needless to say, this is not the kind of conversation that you can have with just everybody who believes in a material world and doesn't believe there's anything out there. Many of you might be familiar with the old movie, it was Jimmy Stewart, I believe, played the character who had an invisible 6 foot tall rabbit friend named Harvey, right? And Harvey was always there over his shoulder. Yeah, hello, Harvey. Hello. All right. Now, I start talking like that, obviously as a joke, and you go, ha ha. But if I said there's a real invisible rabbit behind my back, you're going to go, somebody better call the psychiatrist and get the rabbi some medication. They think there's really somebody there. Well, no, I really don't. I don't think there's a 6 foot invisible rabbit hiding behind me or anything of the kind. But that doesn't mean I'm alone here any more than you are. But are you sensitive and aware of any kind of a presence? You better be. Our entire religious structure is built upon the awareness of these realities and the details thereof. Let's shift now. We're not here to talk religion. I'm not here to talk to you about religion at all. Those entities whom we call representatives, malachim, like the ones who came in Genesis chapter 6, who took the daughters of men and gave rise to the Nephilim, the fallen ones. They were not giants. The word giant is not there in Genesis, so don't go looking for that for the evidence of a 6 foot, of a 10 foot tall guys. 10 foot tall guys were here long ago. All right? Some might still be around. Ask some of the soldiers who fought in Afghanistan. Or maybe that was just a lie. Yeah. Moving right along. Who were these people? Even Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik, Alav Shalom, the Rosh Hashiva Brisk, he wrote, and he knew, they were what our traditions call the Ishim. They were representatives. We call them Malachim, but what they were the pre-adamic humans who went to another planet, and lived there, maybe in a different dimension of that planet that we would be experiencing. So I will tell you this, you can accept this or not. Every planet in our solar system, Mars, Venus, Mercury, even the moon, they're all fully inhabited with ancient civilizations that are technologically advanced with millions and millions of inhabitants. But maybe not in our dimension of perception. Here's something you need to understand. When these, in quote, flying saucers and other ships are coming, they're not coming from outer space. Nay. They're coming interdimensionally. They're coming from another dimension. When they shot down that craft in Roswell, they knew darn well that was not a ship that had intergalactic or outer space capability. It was an interdimensional craft. Strange how, of all people, Steven Spielberg got that right in his Indiana Jones movie. What was it? The Crystal Skulls? And that the flying saucer at the end. They said, where do they come from? They said, the place between places. Little subtle little hints there. This whistleblower from the Pentagon pretty much said the same thing. We're not dealing with extraterrestrials. Oh, they're out there all right. Big time. We're dealing with interdimensionals. And interdimensionals and extraterrestrials are kind of overlapping. Because once you actually get out there, this bubble of what we think is the material world becomes a little more fluid and flexible. And you shift into parallel dimensions physically. And that is the common reality. A point that's made very clear by our sages is the reality of presences of the hollow earth, inner earth. Full civilizations are down there. All the shadim and the jinn live down there. Pre-adamic civilizations, all different walks of life. You know what you call, what do they call the Yeti, Bigfoot? That's indigenous race that lives down there. The Mothman indigenous race lives down there. All of them live down there. When they normally come up here to this world, remember they're in a different dimension. They astral project into our dimension in the same way we astral project to theirs. So if I were going to visit inner Earth, like I said, I don't have a flying saucer in my my garage there, and I don't think my Ford has a gas tank big enough that's going to take me to inner Earth. So the only way I'm going to get there is either to remote view or astral project. Oh, that's all nonsense. It's all in your imagination. Sure, it's in my imagination. You keep on believing that. Okay. I'll tell you something about imagination on camera when we talk about Skinwalker. But anyway, we go there. We see these things. Somebody is texted saying bending space and wormholes. Well, I think those are all real. Because I don't think that when we remote view or when we astral project that we just like float around. I think there are actual passageways, if you will, created in nature, maybe following the magnetic lines of the planet upon which we travel. That's my experience of it and my beliefs. So in inner Earth, who's there, what's there, one of the races that we know live down there is a race called the Nishaya. And they are described as these little guys with big eyes and no noses. Sounds like a gray. Okay, that's who they are. They're not from Zeta Reticuli and all that other crap. They're interdimensional entities from inner Earth. Tell me something. If you were a government agent and you sought contact with these entities, just like the Nazis did before, and your intent and purpose is to solicit from them technological advancement, the likes of which have been very relevant in the last 50, 60, 70 years, what would you pay for that? Pretty much anything. That's what the governments of our world have done. They made a deal with those non-human intelligent civilizations who religiously we call shadim. And at the time, being they didn't believe in such things, they didn't even know it. And if you want to talk about something to hide, boy oh boy, you don't have anything more important to hide than that. And these shadim are not these mystical religious little figures with pitchforks that would come and send you to hell. Put your myths aside. They are clearly, in their own way, physical, intelligent, and powerful beings. No, they're not flying around with wings. They fly around in technological crafts, the likes of which, when we get our hands on, we reverse engineer and recognize the reality of them as opposed to the fantasy of them. And they're very, very present. Entities of this nature, according to Rabbi Menachem Tziuni, that wrote, 700 years ago maybe, they have been craving to intermarry with human beings since the beginning. All kinds of midrashim talk about that. You can even go on to websites like Sefaria, is it Sefaria.org, and pull up the book Kaf HaYashar, and chapters 68, 69, and read about a marriage between a human being and a shed, the likes of which the inheritance of his children were debated between his demonic children and his human children. It had to be adjudicated, and the bet did. And they don't tell the stories of myth. These things are real. And that's what is the big secret. You see, what our governments have discovered is that all the things that all the spiritual and the mystical and the Kabbalists have been talking about for millennia, they know it's real. They experience now. They're able to recognize the technological reality of all of these things, and everybody tries to keep the secret from everybody else. But let's let the cat out of the bag. The Chinese, they're way ahead of everybody. The Chinese were an energetic-based society. They understood and knew the concept of qi. And through that, that's one of the reasons why they invaded Tibet, is to gain access to inner earth. And they have now become their representatives, just like the Nazis were before them. And as such, they understand the psychic dimension and how to interact within it. The Russians, they've been far ahead of the Americans as well in all what we call parapsychological studies and the likes of what they are capable of doing. Read in the books of Kabbalah Ma'asit what we do through technologies, and that's a correct word to use, like Sefer Yetzirah, through the use of holy names, through the proper tonal technologies. Remember, God created the world through sound. The entire universe operates through that tonal technology. So by having the proper oscillations of sound, you can manipulate everything that's made in this material world. Those who know these secrets have a technology at their disposal, the likes of which makes everything else obsolete. With that being said, you can understand why there's a mad dash to understand these things and why it must be kept out of the hands of the public. Because the public ain't going to handle this. Like I said, if AT is all the way out there, cool, they're far away. But the book of Daniel makes it very clear that these entities are right here. They're telepathic entities. Just like E.T., who they entertained at Roswell, gave them full debriefing telepathically. Well, we still communicate telepathically with all of these other entities. There was a race of highly evolved reptilians who matured and evolved on Earth and have since ascended. And they presently serve Hashem, God. And they are reptilian entities, maybe evolved dinosaurs, who knows? I don't think the dinosaurs were so 65 million years ago. They were probably a lot closer than that. But aside from that, an evolved reptilian race. They are referred to as, in the Sefer Yetzirah, they're referred to as the Teli, T-E-L-I. I write all about this. You go search this out. Sefer Yetzirah says that they rule in this universe like a king on his throne. They're the reptilians. We know who they are. And they know us. We know them by different names. The book of Daniel calls them the Irin, the Watchers. The book of Isaiah refers to them as the Seraphim. Now, the Seraphim are the ones who are in the palace of God saying, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So they're pretty high up there in the order. But people say, oh, the word Seraphim, that means burning ones. And I feel like taking the head and giving somebody a whack on the side of the head, saying, that's what you get for not understanding Hebrew correctly. The Hebrew word for burning is soreth. And if they were burning ones, then they would be called Sorethim. But it's very clear from the book of Isaiah that they're not called that. They're called Seraphim. And the word seraph, that's exactly what Moses was told by God to put on a staff back in the book of Numbers. Clearly a reptilian. These are reptilian entities. And they're the good guys. But, well, no but about it. One of the previous epoch stole the image, or might have been a bad Tilly. And that's the story of Adam and Eve, and with the reptilian in the garden. And remember the whole story of that snake? Let me ask you guys something. When was the last time you had a conversation with a snake? The one thing I love out here in Eastern Tennessee is you have the rural area, the remoteness, and you go walk out there, we find snakes all the time. And I have never once stopped the snake, say, yo, how are you doing? And the snake says, and we have a conversation. Maybe we'll go out for lunch together. Come on, let's be realistic. But this snake spoke. Our sages said that this snake, in the Garden of Eden, the Nachash, stood erect, had arms and legs, and not only did it speak with Eve, but there was no fear there, was there? Eve engaged in a conversation with the snake like it's normal, because it was in a trusted form. And the whole thing of what happened and why, I have here in my essays called the Disclosure Essays in Aliens, Angels, and Demons, where I discuss that in great detail. Remember I talked to you that there's a scenario. There is the schoolhouse earth, beginning, middle, and end. And we're coming into those, in quote, end times. And that's why a lot of this material is now starting to be made public. Over a century ago, long before the Nazis rose in Germany, people were dabbling with these contacts, with these other entities. That was always misunderstood to be magic and spiritual and the occult, until finally the reality of the underlying technology, interdimensional technology, of how it all operates, came about. We discovered it was the same technology that was used in the pre-adamic civilizations, and that we're dealing with the pre-adamic civilizations. And their representatives in space, their representatives in Earth, their representatives in parallel dimensions, and they are intelligent, non-human sentient beings. That's a term that was coined by government authorities when dealing with the entity that they discovered at Skinwalker Ranch. So I didn't make that up. These entities, many of them, a group of them we call the Watchers, they manipulate us telepathically. We communicate with them telepathically. They will inspire us for good, Ruach HaKodesh, or they can inspire us for evil, Ruach Ra. They control the minds of people, and they're in control of the minds of the people who are running our society right now. And society is going in a direction based upon the energetic signature of where people are at. It's as if there's a big pendulum which is swinging, being pushed, with all this woke nonsense garbage out there, creating imbalance. Nature doesn't like imbalance. To every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And the powers that be are all behind this. This is why our understandings of what we're dealing with now are so important. I've been dealing and teaching interactions of this type for decades now. I was asked, as you know, a long time ago, to go on to Ancient Aliens and represent the Jewish or Torah point of view, to complement the views of the different people who are on the show. Fine. I had no objections to do that. People who run the the producers of the show, wonderful, wonderful people. Very close. But they never gave me the airtime to say what needed to be said. And it took years before they finally were willing to make a program about what I've been telling them about inner earth, the parallel dimensions. When I speak with Giorgio and Eric, and they're telling me about all the aliens out there, and I say, they aren't from out there, they're from right here. And they never went away. They didn't want to hear it. Not interested. They have their own agenda. Fine. Okay. It came to a point when Skinwalker Ranch, I was invited to go out there. And in spite of the fact that it's private property, wink, wink, there is clearly, like the people, I think the Bigelow people, whoever they were, said that there is clear evidence of a intelligent, sentient, non-human being present there. When I received the invitation, I said the first thing I'm going to do is remote view. I'm going to actually project to the ranch. I'm going to seek out the entity and ask if I have permission from it to visit its home. I made such a projection a number of times, and I did contact that entity. And he gave me his name, but it's not for public dissemination. It's an old, what we would call earth spirit. Lives in a parallel dimension, but this is his home. He doesn't like everybody come poking around and bothering him. But I asked if I could come. He welcomed me. He says, by all means. He understood and understood the energy signature of Kabbalah and Kedusha. And we communicated within that context. Long story short, I go out to the ranch. And you can actually see this in the TV program. Entities that exist around us, their natural indigenous form when we want to see them are these orbs, balls of light. Don't touch it. You can't do that. It's very dangerous. But how do you talk to a ball of light? Ball of lights don't have mouths. Talk. They project thought, imagery. And that's, of course, the language of the psychic world is imagery. It's not rational, intellectual. It's psychic, intuitive. Language of dreams. You must always understand the language of dreams. Hey, in the Visions of the End of Days book, because Daniel's visions were all in dreams, I have a whole thing in there about dream interpretation, how to understand dreams. Again, you say you want to understand these things. Well, I got it there for you if you're interested. So that's all I could say. Well, when you approach one of these entities, you're not going to go shake its hand. It doesn't have a hand. It's not human, but it has thought. It has mind. It has presence. You go into a meditative state, you project out, and you talk to them. And they'll communicate with you. If they're malicious and malevolent, like I said, they're actually animals at that psychic level. And they are feeders. They look to energy signatures of human beings that are able to be siphoned off from them, and they, in quote, eat them. So many of these negative, harmful entities look to the lower vibrational signatures of human beings and corral human beings and siphon them and use them as food, which is why they do a lot of the things they do to manipulate people to act in what we would call immoral, improper ways. It lowers their energy frequencies that enables them to come and feed animals. Not in a negative, derogatory way. Like, I put out, meat from my dogs they're going to eat. That doesn't make them evil. One of my shepherds, my male shepherd, Crypto, ran down and hunted down a rabbit, a wabbit. And he ate it. I'm sure the rabbit was not that thrilled and thought Crypto was probably an evil demon. But as far as Crypto was concerned, it was a yummy lunch or dinner, as the case may be. Okay. That's how they look energetically. They don't think like us. I went to Skinwalker. I spoke with the entity there. The television people wanted me to do a ceremony to open up a vortex. So we're filming, chatting. I'm telling people this stuff. They put it on the program. And they asked me if I could call upon the entity. I'll ask. It's like if I'm talking to you and you say, Rabbi, I say, hey, would you come on? Would you come on and talk with me? And you either say yes or no. So as we were sitting there chatting, up there in the sky, that ball of light appeared, and everyone, look! It's a flying saucer. Yeah, flying saucer in my butt. Yeah, but they were upset because they didn't have the camera there ready to film it. So the thing, comes and goes because it takes effort on its part to materialize in our dimensional plane. It's like holding your breath and going underwater. All right? You can only stay down for a bit. That's what it's like. It's okay. What do you think people from Hollywood mentality ask? They say, hey, could you do it again? We can capture it on camera. I laughed. I sent the message. They want to do it again, take 2. The entity actually laughed and said, sure. Just like a human being would. And we did it again. The entity appeared again. And this time they caught it on camera. And if you look at the show where we're chatting and they go, look. And they show it up in the air. That's what happened. That's the real story. There's certain things I can't show you, but I will tell you. That night, they wanted me to do the ceremony. I set up the circle, the holy circle of, protection and stuff like that. I outline how to do that in my books for those of you who are interested about how to do this stuff. I teach a seminar privately in which I teach people how to do this. I take them out to the land, we do stuff, we talk things, etc. But okay, all experientially based. They wanted to record what I did with the tonal technologies. I knew that. And frankly, this is the first time I'm confessing to it in public. I didn't give them what they wanted. I would never violate confidences to put into their hands something that I knew they wanted to weaponize. Yeah. But I still did something. And entity came, and something happened that night. I'm sure you're all familiar with heat signatures. You've seen the pictures on the cameras. When you put out the heat cameras, you can see the hot places, the cold places, the middle places, all the colors of the rainbow. Something happened. They didn't put this on the film. All of the colors of the heat signatures started to arrange themselves horizontally, line by line by line, according to the rainbow. The scientist guys, the military guys, they were sitting there freaking out because they know that nothing like that could ever happen in nature. And then all of a sudden, down in the corner, I think it was Homestead 2, whatever the heck it was, you could see the silhouette of a human figure in the darkness of the energy signature. And Dr. Taylor and others went running after it. And you can see this on camera. I don't think they put this on the show. That the closer they got to the entity, you could see the entity walking away as if toying with them. Well, I spoke with the entity. The entity was having a good time with them. The entity actually liked Dr. Taylor, but he says, I got to have a talk with him. The entity said this. So I approached Dr. Taylor, and I said, you know something? They want to talk to you. And Dr. Taylor, remember, he's a NASA scientist. He's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. He understands a lot of this deeper stuff too, but he's never going to admit to it in the public. And he says to me, really, what? And, half believed me, half didn't believe me. And that night, something happened to him. I didn't know this at the time. I only found this out because Dr. Taylor gave an interview somewhere in Las Vegas years ago, and it's on YouTube. You look up Travis Taylor interview something, and he talks about it. That this entity came to him at night and says, poked him in the cheek, gave him a message. The one thing that they've learned with the Nibs people out at Skinwalker and the like is that because you poke a nest, those entities followed all of those people home and kicked their tushies, if you know what I mean. No one's ever killed or hurt, but they let them know that to weaponize this psychic dimension for the sake of any kind of human warfare is not going to be tolerated. And that is the message. Because we now understand what we're up against. We know that this is a much greater universe than just what we see. And the people who are the most closed to this, surprisingly, are the religious. Doesn't matter what our religions are, we're all the same. Because we look at this stuff as being mythological, as opposed to recognizing its actual and scientific reality. Yes, angels and demons and extraterrestrials, they're all one and the same. And they all operate within the contexts of their own dimensional relative laws of space and time as it applies to them. They are not all of this dimension, they're of different dimensions. Many of them are ancient. They know us all too well. Many of them are in inner earth. And according to our legends, on the day of the destruction of the temple, first temple, 586 BCE, on the 9th of Av, the day of the destruction, a woman of the house of David gave birth to a child. This is a legend, this is Midrash, this is a Gemara. And the child was abducted and taken away. The Zohar states that this child for the last 2,500 plus years has been raised in a place called the Bird's Nest, which is said to be in inner earth, in a place called the Garden of Eden. And you know where the Garden of Eden is. Well, let me rephrase that. You know how to access the Garden of Eden, don't you? Midrash. Abraham certainly knew this. When Abraham said that one of the stories says one of his sheep ran into a cave. He goes into the cave. He smells something really fragrant. He finds the burial place of Adam and Eve. Adam gets up and talks to him. Hey, how's it going? All right. Nice to talk to a dead guy. And he's talking. Okay, remember, it's a story. And it is said that the cave of Machpelah in Hebron is the entranceway to the Garden of Eden. Have ever you guys been in a cave? We got plenty of beautiful caves out here in East Tennessee. Wonderful places. We even have our own cave in our property, which hopefully will develop one day. And gardens. How many people grow gardens in a cave? Garden of Eden's in a cave? Certainly not. But the access to the Garden of Eden is in this cave. Well, how do you get from the garden to the cave and the cave to the garden? We would call that a dimensional vortex passageway. Who believes in that kind of nonsense? I'll give you one person who did. My teacher, Rabbi Meir Levi, Alav Shalom, who was the top student of the head Mekubal of Yerushalayim, Rav Mordechai Sharabi, Alav Shalom. And I will tell you what Rabbi Meir told me. Rabbi Meir was born and raised in Israel, Palestine, in the olden days. And he was around in the days before the Hebron massacre in 1929. And he told me that there was activity of anti-Semitism, because it was well known that deep underneath the cave of Machpelah is something that no one goes down there. And Rebbe Meir told me that every now and then they would kidnap a Jew, tie a rope around him, and lower him down the hundreds and hundreds of feet into the cave. They said over repeated times, you could feel the heaviness on the rope of the guy being lowered down, and hear his screaming, ah! Silence. The rope, the weight gone. They pull up the rope. It wasn't broken. It wasn't torn. It was gone. And the guy in it was gone. There's a vortex. And he passed through to what we believe is inner earth. Directly underneath Jerusalem and Hebron is an actual place in inner earth called the Garden of Eden. Now, if we could take the earth and chop it open in half in Nikola Tesla style, would we actually see an inner earth? Or is it full of magma like modern science say? I don't know. I suspect that, well, we know inside the crust there are caverns the size of continents. They've found more water as an underground ocean. I think it was said that it's bigger than all the oceans. So they know something real is down there. When you hear the stories of Admiral Byrd going in through the poles and interacting with entities there, that's in accordance to what we've always known and believed. When you read Margaret Cavendish's book from the 1600s, right, in our blazing world, sounds just like what our sages have been teaching for thousands of years. All of these peripheral teachings, Agartha, and the Buddhist tradition, sounds just like what we've been teaching. Everyone knows this. You can go onto YouTube now, and you will see all kinds of videos from all sources of strange things that people are encountering. We know these things are all real. You want to encounter Bigfoot? He's real, but he doesn't live in our forests, but he comes up here every now and then through doorways. Are they intelligently and aware of these doorways? I'm sure they must be. And out here in our Charahala, out in the Cherokee National Forest, we know of the Nunehe. And the Nunehe still interact with many people to this very day. If you don't know who the Nunehe are, they're the wee people. I had my own experiences with them many years ago. I wrote about in Protection from Evil. And again, the detractors always, well, it's all your imagination. Maybe. But let me tell you something about my imagination. Many times when I have my in-quote experiences, I'm given some information, a revelation or an insight. My first reaction is I never believe anything. I'm a skeptic of skeptics, and I confess it. I'm a rationalist in spite of what anybody wants to think. So whenever I have an experience, whenever I experience and receive something, the first thing I say, oh, that's interesting. I want validation. And son of a gun, if it doesn't take days, weeks, years, months, years, whatever, validation has come over again. It's convinced me this is real. That's how I know it. And that's how I teach it. So let's put all of this information together. What's happening in our world right now? It's a plan. Now, in the religious circles, they'll say it's the coming of the New World Order. Oh, that's actually the politician guys. The coming of, we call it the Armilos. The Christians call it the Antichrist. In Islam, our brothers call it the Al-Dajjal, what they always associate with the United States and materialism and secularism, and they're probably right. But all of what is happening is for a reason. It is all being guided and directed by the one source. You and I are under the impression that there's a war going on between good and evil. But Isaiah 45:7 makes it very clear, right? God is the author of both light and darkness, good and evil. Somebody's asking me if there's a portal at Skinwalker. Of course there's a portal at Skinwalker. That's how the entity comes in and out. And our government wants to make sure that they can weaponize it and use it for their own psychic warfare activities. Our government knows very well the trouble that they are in. That's why we're having the conflict between the forces in our country today, between those who want to destroy it and those who want to save it. And I will tell you this. The United States of America was founded to be a Noahide nation by people who are secretly adept in our Kabbalistic traditions, like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and the like. And as such, it was prophesied that this country would survive, and will survive, even to the times of Mashiach. But like biblical Israel, the uncleanliness and the evil in here needs to be cleansed, and it will be. That is coming. We know it. We see it. Whether it's going to materialize as a nuclear World War III or a civil war or the next pandemic, probably all of those things are coming. But the emphasis is that you shouldn't be afraid of these things. The reason why they're coming, why God allows it to come, is so that we will evolve and finally make the great distinction within ourselves between good and evil. Good and evil are becoming more and more clear every day. And our minds are being dulled more and more every day. So here I am giving you great revelations and insights, showing you all my books and stuff. Who's going to listen? Who's going to pay attention? When we're done with our little class here tonight, some of you are going to nod your head, that was nice. And they'll go on to the next video. You know, that's just the way it is. In the days before the big flood, right? Big flood was brought about by intentional design of most likely some type of meteor that was intentionally brought into the orbit of the Earth close enough that its magnetic field literally drew the oceans gravitationally out of their body, out of their beds, and then as it lifted and went away, whoosh, covered the earth. And the people of the generation knew it was coming. They thought they had the technology to defeat it, but they were wrong. And they have wanted revenge ever since. They're the ones who wanted to launch an assault against the forces in heaven by building what we would today interpret to be a nuclear-powered spaceship. Our traditions refer to that as the Tower of Babel. Go read in my book about all the different teachings of our sages about what the Tower of Babel really was. And that's what it was. And that's why God intervened. The angels came and confused their languages. Do you think all of a sudden, overnight, everybody spoke different languages with all the syntax and grammar and the vocabulary? No. It means psychically, telepathically, they were no longer in harmony anymore, that they could communicate, and everyone went their own way. And that's just the way it is. So therefore, that's the way it is. We have good and evil in this dimension and in every dimension. That's right out of the Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah speaks of the dimensional planes. And one of the dimensions is the dimension of morality. And therefore, as such, good and evil is a constant in the universe. And that's where we're at. Entities of all sides take their sides. And things are happening right now so as to create the specific Havdalah, the great separation. And that's what we see happening today. One of the great legends that we talk about in Yetziat Mitzrayim was how the children of Israel, a large number of them, could not see the redemption with Moses, and therefore they died in a plague of darkness and did not merit the redemption. It's going to be the same thing today. Look how many Jewish individuals there are today who have abandoned the faith and have become literal agents of evil, representing every type of perversion that's out there. And it's not Jewish unity. I don't want unity with people like that. Sorry. You want go to Lubavitch, Breslov, maybe they'll take them and not me. I judge by energy signatures, and we want calibrated souls. I'd much rather, and I'm more proud to live with amongst righteous Gentiles than amongst unrighteous Jews. You don't like that? Fine. That's me. But everything today is by the hand of God. Our governments know so much that they cannot go public with it. And all these whistleblowers are literally just testing the waters. Everything is happening for a reason. Everything is happening for a purpose. And there's nothing you and I are going to do to change the greatest scheme of the world. That's in God's hands. But each of us are being watched, tested, to see if we will evolve. The Hebrew word, of course, is doing teshuvah. So you see, the religious message is ultimately the universal message. To rise up to become mature, responsible, moral, and righteous individuals. That's what the test is all about. That's what we face every day. And the more and more we come towards the crescendo, the Ketz Hayamim, the end of days, the more this is going to become glaringly clear. And that is where we are at today. And that is the big secret. And that is why the governments of our world are never going to come out, the United Nations, the US, and say, yes, there's life. Because then they have to explain what that life is, where it is, and all the mistakes they've made by trying to get involved with it. They're never going to do that in a million years. They're going to cover their tracks. And there are those in our governments who recognize very much what they're dealing with. And they will approach righteous Kabbalists who can teach them certain things about holiness and Kedusha, because they recognize that is the only weapon that's available in the arsenal of psychic warfare that actually works. I teach that kind of stuff for those who are interested. So, that's pretty much it. If you want more information, I put the links to my books up on Facebook. Visions, The End of Days, if you're interested in prophecy. Alien Angels and Demons, if you want all the source material for what the rabbis say about it. Behind the Veil, deeper stuff. Source material, Inner Earth and the like. And if you really want deep stuff about energy and how to work, The Unveiling. It's my recent one. I got a dozen other books out there. All different kinds of stuff and everything else. That's what it is. And I assure you, Torah is from Sinai. Torah is truth. What we call God is truth. I don't think we have a clue about what God really is. I think you really need to study Kabbalah to have any semblance of a concept of understanding God. If you still think God is like the little old man with the white beard sitting on the cloud, saying ho, 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 when you say gimme, gimme, yeah, okay. I guess you'll just go back to children's school and that's what you'll believe. The ultimate force in the universe is the power of what we call morality, Kedusha. That is the main focus. You're not alone. I'm not alone. And they are very much out there. They are very much with their own agenda. They have very much hybridized themselves to take on human form. And physically, they are 100% DNA perfect human beings. But their energy signature shows that they are not human at all. We call them all kinds of different names. We know about them. Recent authors like David Jacobs, I think was his name. He wrote about them. He knows about these things. Other people do as well. All these things, what our sages have been talking about for thousands of years. We know it. We're involved with it. We don't bring it to the public because this is not public stuff. Take a look at the numbers that we have here live and who will be watching this video. Very small. That's fine. Someone's asking me to speak more about the hybrids. You will know them by their energy signatures, meaning their behaviors. Because they're so intoxicated with materiality that they try to seek out every single perverted sensation that they possibly can. Use that as your code for recognition. You'll know who they are. Right? You'll know them by their deeds. I just leave it at that. Right? Like I said, Rabbi Menachem Tzuni wrote about them. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid wrote about them. And so I share with you. And you can believe everything that I'm saying, or you can believe nothing what I'm saying. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you this. The truths of which we speak will ultimately become self-evident. When that entity, individual, who we call Mashiach, is he really coming from inner earth? I guess we'll find out when the time comes. You know, the great prophecy in both Zechariah and Ezekiel speak of the big earthquake which is going to tear apart Yerushalayim. The belief is that those from inner earth are going to actually create it through some kind of a tonal technology to rip apart the earth, and that their invasion force is going to take over the earth. It's not going to come from outer space. It's going to come through inner earth. That's the legend. That's the teaching. Right, wrong, true, false? I guess we'll find out. So that is where we are at. And in that, I'm going to conclude. If you want to be in touch with me for any reason, you have my email, my name, arieltzadok@gmail.com. Of course, I'm going to continue posting things here on Facebook. It's summertime, so I should have a little bit more time to maybe do some more live now that I figured out the technology, what Facebook wants from me. And of course, we'll try to post things onto YouTube and the like. And if you want to come study with us, our school is open for you. I don't care who you are. I am proud honored, honestly, to say we have students from all walks of life, from all different communities. I don't care what your politics are, right wing, left. I don't care what your sexuality. We have people from all the different walks of life. But I tell people, hey, this is an Orthodox Jewish school. You're going to learn here what the Torah teaches. I'll teach it to you right. You're welcome to listen. I can't promise you may be offended by some of the things that are taught. I can't just stop or change that, and I won't. But you're welcome. Everyone is. Because I don't care who you are, I don't care what you are, I don't care where you are. We're all in this together. We're all human beings. We're all human souls. We're all in Schoolhouse Earth. We're all here to learn, and God be willing. Hey, I'm no school teacher. If anything, I'm just the other wild kid in the sandbox playing along with you, saying, hey, look at that. That's it. Thank you all for joining me. I'm Ariel Tzadok, KosherTorah School, found online at KosherTorah.com. You're with me now on my Facebook page. Keep checking us out here and check out our YouTube page. So thank you again for joining me. I got to find out what happened to my mouse. I don't know if I was... I'm going to call it a day. Thanks all for joining me. God bless. Shalom. Ugh, figures. Where's my mouse? It's all on the other side there. There we go. Alrighty, guys. Thank you again.